Well, welcome everyone to the Real Life, Real People, Real Stories podcast. Today's very special guest is going to tell us all about how important it is to be able to pivot and adapt as life throws you curveballs. Welcome to the podcast, Julie Sebalj. How are you?
Hey, Rob, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Now, I've known Jules for quite a few years. She's a very determined lady. She's done an awful lot. And she's grown up in a loving family. She's got a beautiful family of her own these days. Very successful business lady in multiple ventures. But I'd just like to ask you, Jill, where did you grow up with and what was your family life like before you got into the real world, as we call it?
Yeah, so I came into the world on the very 1st of January in 1980. I always have to make a grand entrance, as you could say.
Yes, you do.
I grew up in Roos, over in Campbelltown. I was born in Liverpool Hospital. I spent my entire life until I was in my early 20s in Roos, in the family home. I'm one of seven, seven in my family, I should say, mum and dad, and 5 siblings. Well, there were 5 children, so I was number 3 child.
So bathroom times would have been a challenge?
Well, fortunately, it was a little typical 3-bedroom home, which mum and dad then decided to do a renovation, do an upstairs. So we added another 3 bedrooms. So we all had our own rooms. So,
wow.
Yeah, we were very lucky, I guess. At one point when my brother was born, the 3 of us girls, the older girls, were all sharing a room together. So that was fun. And it was also fun. I remember learning to drive where the 3 of us had to share a car. But I also remember fuel only being 45 cents a litre, which I much prefer to $1.45 a litre.
So what happens if all 3 of you had a date?
It never happened, but we'd just share. We'd all put our $5 of fuel. We'd go to Ed's service station, and $5 was all that we ever put in because it used to fill the little Meteor right pretty much 45 cents a litre.
Yeah.
But my family background is Croatian, which I'm very proud of. My family heritage. Got family property out at Leppington, Bradbury, and also Wollongong. I spent most of my childhood. Pretty much every school holidays we'd be with grandparents and family. I remember growing up, we had a chicken farm next to my grandparents' property. And so I used to go pick the eggs with my grandmother. I used to go to Flemington markets with my grandfather because they were market growers. So we'd sell the cucumbers, capsicums, tomatoes. And I loved the little church, the Catholic church in Leppington. We used to go there.
Yes.
Grandparents used to put all of us grandchildren in the back of their LTD and we'd all go up to Mass on a Sunday. And you could hear little bits of like lolly wrappers rustling. I have fond memories of this. And my grandmother used to give us lollies to keep us quiet. I'm not sure, but sugar and me never really went too well.
So were you a good student?
On my report cards, you would often read, Julie is determined, however, is a distraction to herself and others in class by many of my teachers. Julie uplifts students, however, she distracts students. So, yeah, I was a very distracting person, even to myself at times. So,
what was your favourite subject?
My favourite subject was probably, I'd say textiles, like sewing in high school. And then I actually really enjoyed English, of all things. Yeah, I don't know. English was a subject, but in high school, I went to a Catholic high school, John Terry up in Rose Meadow, and I actually really enjoyed going to Mass on a Friday. I don't know. It was just something about Mass, and maybe it was getting out of class. Probably that might have been more so what it was.
I know when I went to Mass, when I was at my school, it was sort of, we had no choice. We were marched off. And we looked at it purely from the stage of, 45 minutes out of class. That's awesome. The brothers didn't think that. So, it is what it is. So I was doing a bit of reading up on you and what you've been doing. How did the little girl from Roos end up having this absolutely breathtaking career in travel?
Travel. So would you believe in year 12, right before we finished, I had no idea what I wanted to do. None. And I remember my mum saying, so what are your plans? And I said, I have no idea. And then I started looking through some career options and thought, travel agent. Yeah, I want to be a travel agent. So I literally signed up a week before the course had closed. So I went to a private college in the city and that was in 1998. I started that, and yeah, I've
Yep.
been travel ever since. So graduated in February 1999. So 21 years.
So were you one of these travel agents that never left Australia, or did you actually get the chance to go over and see some of the places you sold?
No, I've been very fortunate. Probably in the last couple of years, I've
Mhm.
really gone afar, and or abroad. I'm not sure what you'd say, but I've really done some amazing travel trips, business class, premium economy. I've really, I've spoilt myself a little bit when I've gone. But yeah, in the beginning part of it, I got married quite young, had my kids quite young. So
Mm.
that sort of restricted a lot of opportunities that I got offered, but had to knock back a lot of them as well, being a mum. And most of the time, I guess I felt like a single mum
Yeah.
um, when you do everything. And, I was
Yeah.
working from home in my business for 9 years,
Yes.
pretty much working 24/7. You'd be on call. So, I love it. I've done a lot of different areas in the travel industry, not just as a booking consultant, I guess.
Yep.
When people think of travel agents, that's what they think of. But I've worked in a reservation center. I've been a sales rep. I've also done the expos, events, social media, and marketing. So I've really created so many different opportunities for myself in the last 21 years, which has been exciting.
So out of all the places you got to visit overseas, what would be your favourite? And you can't list, you cannot say we're home,
Yep.
Croatia. Where else would you say?
Well, just recently turning 40, we went over to New York, and
Yes.
then we also
Ah,
LA on the way home. So
yes.
I would have to say America, we haven't even seen, we've seen a very tiny
Yeah.
portion of the US, but I really enjoyed the US. Like a lot of places felt like home. But in saying that, when I was in London, in Chelsea, that felt like we were just at home.
Mm.
So I don't know. I don't think I've got one favorite place. I
Yep.
think I'm grateful to have opportunities where I can travel, even in Australia. Like there's so many places in Australia that I've traveled to that I love.
Yeah.
But overseas, I think all of them so far, because I've never been to the same place twice.
How did you find going into the travel industry, being a lady? Was there any challenges or any hurdles you had to jump over you thought may have been different if you'd been a male?
Yeah, I think looking at management roles, a lot of the time, all the people when I first started, so in 99, all people above me, majority of them were males.
Yeah.
And even being a sales rep, though, it was more female dominant than male. But consulting these days, it's
Mm.
still more female dominant.
Yeah.
But just with those higher positions, yeah, there's a lot of male dominance versus female. So it's been an interesting one. I think that's why I've created opportunities for myself along the way, which have worked and been quite successful.
So you didn't always work for someone else. You've worked for yourself. How was the transition to do that, and how scary was it?
Yeah, I guess being very independent, driven, and
Mm.
focused, like it was my business. I didn't have to answer to anybody. But when I've worked for other people, I've always acted and respected their business, but
Yeah.
treated it like it was my own.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's, when I was working from home with my business and then I merged it with another one, to me, it was no different. I just wasn't at home doing it. And, I was getting a wage and I was getting paid for holidays. So that's the side of it that I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah.
And to have support and a team network around you, I appreciated because there were people that I could bounce ideas and things off. So yeah, it's had its pros and cons, I guess, of
Yeah.
both. But then when I was on my own, I was a part, as you know, of networking groups.
Yes.
Everything has pros and cons, I guess.
If someone said to you today, not to get into the travel industry, we'll get onto that shortly, but we're going into business by themselves as a sole trailer, what would you tell them? What bit of advice would you give after you've like everyone, you've made your mistakes, you've made the opposite, your great successes? What would you say to someone who's about to put their shingle up and say, I'm going to stand on my own and make
Yeah.
my own millions as they hoped?
I would really encourage them to make that list of pros and cons of doing things on your own, have a wish list of what they want, but also engaging with a business consultant, someone like yourself.
Hmm.
where, they could go and get advice and ask questions, that, a business coach,
Yeah.
that they just make sure they're on the right path and track. Maybe they've missed something, or I don't know. That's just where I feel if it was me going in there, yes, I'd be open to listen to people. But again, I've sort of found that you tend to not really talk to many people about your ideas because everyone has their own opinion.
Yes.
You get very jealous and, because nobody ever wants you to be more successful than them. God forbid,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but to me, most of the big business people and small business people that are successful that I've met are actually the most successful are the ones that turn around and say, how can I help you? I want you to be more successful than me.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know about you, but I think the people who think, well, I don't want her to be more successful. I don't want to be, they're the ones that never are successful.
100%. And that's what I've learned over my years in business.
Hmm.
But, I've been very grateful to surround myself with some really positive energy people. And yeah, I don't really engage when I've got an idea of something. It's not something that I would share with a lot of people, because obviously you get a little protective, but
Yeah.
the people that I have opened up to and asked for advice have definitely been the right ones, because that's what you've just said. You've hit the nail on the head there. That's what's happened to me in recent weeks.
Now, I've been doing some more research on you, and, there's something just I can't get my head around. I read up on you, and your family's very important to you, your kids, you love life, but a bodybuilder? What were you thinking, Julie? Where did this come from?
Well, I've always had an appreciation is probably the best word for women's physiques. Men's physiques, yes, they're amazing, but women's physiques in particular,
Yeah.
I've always really appreciated. And, even when I'm out and I see a woman and I think, wow, she's got an amazing physique. I started CrossFit after I'd had my son, got into a bit of fitness, wanted to get my body back and be fit and healthy. And then I came across CrossFit. I did that for 3.5 years and then I hurt my back.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, I was contemplating bodybuilding and then it was just meant to happen. So I just decided to give that a crack and I did 2 bodybuilding comps.
Yes.
And then I had signed up with a new coach to give Arnold's, the Arnold Classic, which is in Melbourne in February, March most years.
Yes.
I signed up to do that, and then just some health things, something just didn't seem right. So I pulled out of that. But I've got to say, my highlight in fitness and in training, I've always been quite sporty and into sport growing up as a kid. But I thoroughly enjoyed bodybuilding. I think it was the challenge. I always, even in CrossFit, would set myself a goal or a challenge. And to me, bodybuilding was just another one of those. That was at the extreme level.
Now, one of the things that people say about you is you are very adaptive. I'm just going to go back to you said you hurt your back. So most people would say, I've hurt my back. I'm not going to adapt and pivot and go and do bodybuilding and fitness. That's the opposite of a hurt back to people who aren't in the industry. Where was your mind then? How did you come to the understanding that, well, if I get fit and I do this, it's actually going to help my back, not hurt it?
I think it was just a totally, like you've just said, it was just a different aspect. I went and had physio, I had a feeling that where the injury was in my back, I had a bulging disc. I had 3 epidurals. So pretty much that's exactly where my epidurals had been in my spine to where my bulging disc issue was. So I thought, I can do bodybuilding. I can be smart about, lifting weights and it's all about form and technique. And I'd learned a lot of that from CrossFit. So I took a lot of those learning skills with me. I also did my Cert 3 in fitness as a group trainer, I guess.
Yeah.
I just wanted to learn more about the body and just have a better understanding. And so I adapted that in with bodybuilding as well. So it was just another challenge where I thought, okay, I've hurt my back. I'm not going to give up and do nothing. So I took it as an opportunity to try something new.
So we fast forward a couple of years now. If anyone's listening to this, they can pick up that you're a lady that is very determined and loves a challenge. 4 months ago, the world changed again for Julie. your love and your passion of travel and your business in a blink of an eye was gone with the pandemic. How did it make you feel when everything you absolutely loved when on the work side was taken away? And what were you thinking in the days after that it was all gone?
Yeah, I started up with iTravel, which I've been with before, which is a home base. They have some shop fronts and a lot of mobile agents, and it's a brand that I trust. The directors are amazing. I like their platform and concept of everything, and everyone that we work with, you know, all the other staff and also the travel industry side of it. And so I was gutted because I was just starting to get back into the swing of things. Started doing a lot of quotes and had bookings, and then obviously COVID happened. And it was, and I know I'm not the only one in the travel industry that has felt like this, because it's really affected so many of us. But I just didn't know what was going to happen. Like, to see images and videos of airlines grounded, you know, they're going offshore or wherever they're going, and literally it's just a car park of aeroplanes. You know, my 21 years in travel, this has never happened. Even, you know, from September 11 over the Twin Towers, and you know, seeing those sorts of things, that has an impact on you. But this had an impact on the world as a whole that people didn't even know. Like, I still speak to a lot of my travel friends that you know, they're consultants or they own businesses, and it's a nightmare. Like, you know, I don't know. I still don't know what to think. I just think it's so devastating for the travel and tourism industry. The impact that this has had on the whole world, like, it's just been horrible.
So how important is it, when you look at your challenges up to what we've spoken about, is mindset, attitude, and having resilience when things get thrown at you that you weren't expecting?
I think it's just that people, like, obviously it makes you really take that step back, reevaluate everything around you, and just decide, you know, obviously what's important, what's next? What do I do now? Do I just sit back and wait? Do I look for other opportunities? You know, like, what do you do? Because typically things don't come at you, like, quite rare. You know, I've had a lot of curveballs thrown at me in recent months, but job opportunities can be quite rare. And I think it's an opportunity where I looked at my resume, like, I looked at a lot of things just to say, okay, what do I do now? You know, there's been a lot of opportunities offered to people, whether or not they were willing to take it for extra study or whatever it might be, just to enhance, you know, them in a career path.
So the ultimate test has come when you got the massive curveball with the big C, as we call it, cancer, thrown at you. You're a strong lady, Julie, but when you heard that and when you had to face that one, I saw the dog there. Did the dog get the cop at all, or was it the other half, or how did you cope with that? I mean, that's a big one to face up to.
Yeah, so I guess just sort of going on that random phone call to confirm my address late last year from a hospital that my daughter was under. I then get this letter in the mail 2 weeks later. I inquired about the letter. It was talking about genetic testing. I knew nothing about this letter. And then I was told that it was a mistake. So I disregarded it. And then 2 weeks later, I had a phone call. This was now August last year. Had a phone call from a genetic clinic just to say that they, you know, wanted to ask about my family history with cancer. And I still was like, what is this about? And then basically an incidental finding was made in my now 16-year-old daughter that she has a BRCA1 cancer gene mutation, which BRCA1 is linked to breast cancer, ovarian, prostate, and pancreatic cancer. Anyway, I went in, had a meeting at the hospital. I had my blood test done, and 2 weeks later tested positive. So that was a real shock. But I think the biggest shock was like losing our dad 4 years ago, coming up to in a couple of weeks, from prostate cancer. You know, had his prostate checked in November. 2 months later, we nearly lost him and we had no idea why. So by the end of January, February the next year, he had cancer, prostate cancer, and all through his bones. So, and then he passed away in July. So, you know, I guess finding out that my daughter had this incidental finding that took 6 years for someone to tell us, taken from a blood sample from surgery she had like in 2013, it was a huge shock. You know, knowing that I had it, I kind of didn't really care about me. It was more my other, like the rest of my family, because it's an inherited gene. So it's come from mum or dad.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is a huge curveball, but what do I do? You know, we've been throwing curveballs with my daughter. We've had the odd one for my son. And my attitude was always, okay, no problems. What do I do now? So, you know, in the last couple of weeks, I've turned a huge negative into an amazing positive, where I've created a business opportunity that I'm currently working on. And I can't wait to get more of that out there. It's just, I can't wait. But it seems surreal. I've had 2 surgeries and I'll be going back in for another one in the next couple of weeks. So it just, it's kind of, mixed emotions, but I know I am a very strong person.
You are.
I know, again, it's just that curveball that I've just grabbed and thought, okay, suck it over this way. Let's just move on and let's deal with this.
How do you think the level of support is? I mean, everyone hears a lot about prostate cancer. They hear a lot about breast cancer. But as you and I know from personal experience, it's the rest of the cancers these days that have the most worst effect, as we would say. When it comes to what you went through, how do you think the support is there for people these days and the information around it? Because a lot of people wouldn't even know what you were talking about.
No.
They hear about those words and they go, what's that? That's, you know, I've never heard of that gene before, or who do I speak to when something like that hits us? Where do we go to from here?
So that's something that I'm actually working on at the moment. There are some organisations out there, but I just find there's so many different channels that you've got to kind of search through all this information. So, like I said, a new opportunity for me I've created again. So it is something that I am working on in a very different sort of manner. But for me, it's all about awareness. And, you know, I love to be an advocate for awareness in people because, you know, like I look at my dad and I think he had cancer. We didn't even know he was in the cancer ward. I looked at it and went, oncology, that's cancer. And I remember the nurse saying, your dad has cancer. And I'm like, oh, we didn't know this. So, and, you know, it would have been good had someone have spoken to us when he passed away about cancer because, you know, just genetic testing.
Do you think it's, when you're talking about your dad and people they talk about this a lot, do you think it's the male thing of, I don't talk about being well and I don't want to tell anyone that I have cancer, and ultimately if they do, and if they did, it would be a lot better for them and the family? I mean, a lot of guys just don't do what they should do when it comes to talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is how many people do the bowel checks that they get sent in the mail when they turn, 55?
50, something like that,
How many people just throw them out? And it's the same as your prostate or your breast check. Like there's so many tools out there that are underutilized. Simple things like for girls, going to get their bras properly measured somewhere, you know, like kind of like wearing, if you're a size 14, but you might be wearing a size 18, or you might be a size 14 and you might be wearing a size 10 clothing or whatever it is, you know, it's just, you know, sometimes we don't think about it. We get in denial. We put our head in the bucket. I know my dad was petrified. He was very scared. And I remember many times going to hospital with him for appointments post the January. He was in and out of hospital and he became very unwell many times, which was really scary. But even just to watch somebody, and I get teary, but to watch someone go through that's been horrible.
It is,
So I've undertaken preventative surgery. I don't want to go through that. And, you know, I mean, if I was to get cancer of something else somewhere else, then I'll deal with that. But to know that I've got a chance to not have breast or ovarian cancer, why would I not do preventative surgery?
Yeah, look, I think it's something that a lot of people, it's not spoken about enough, Jules.
Absolutely.
And I do commend you for bringing it up,
Yeah.
because a lot of people do put their head in the sand, as you said. And I've been privileged enough to be around kids with cancer. And you look at them and they just smile the whole way. They are the most amazing, and their parents and that. And they openly talk about it. And I look at these kids and go, you are braver than most adults.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's not, and it's coming from a different place. It's where people have got to realise that it's not, you're not a bad thing for not talking about it, but it's a better thing to be talking about it. And you've been throwing a lot of curveballs. If I'd said one thing to you, it would be, if you had to go and see someone now and they've just said to you, I've just had a diagnosis of cancer, I found out I've got the same gene, and they just got that look in their eye as anyone would have go, what do I do, or who do I go? What little piece of advice would you give them to help them get through the challenges that are going to be in front of them?
So, perfect example is I'm a part of a BRCA 1 and 2 Australia Facebook page, which is a closed. And I don't really comment a lot. I find it a little overwhelming at times.
Yes, I understand that.
But recently, two quite young females had wrote a message on there, and I gave them my phone number. Everybody gives opinions on, their experience and everything else. It's great, but, for someone, and I know when it happened to me, like, I had no idea. I was just relying on the genetic clinic to be giving me their paper, and I was reading information, doing my own research, and came across this group. And anyway, I put my phone number on the page for anybody. If anyone ever wants to talk, I've just had a double mastectomy, more than happy to chat to anyone.
Yeah.
So one of the girls, we actually chatted. She's from interstate.
Yes.
And she's 31. Her dad had breast cancer.
Yeah.
And she was just like in shock. And she said that she had said to her husband, if you wanted to leave me now, now's your opportunity. And I think that's just someone that really, you don't know yourself, how you're feeling, all these emotions of nobody's going to want to be with me. I've got to go and have a double mastectomy. This is what I'm doing to prevent my life and to be with my children and my family, to prolong my life. But my advice just is to, don't always take one opinion or somebody, like what one person says, as gospel, because everybody experiences it differently. For example, with the double mastectomy, the particular surgery I've had done is only one of many options for women and men. Men get breast cancer too.
They do.
Significantly less percentage than females, but they still go through this. So my biggest thing is just, if somebody wanted me to go with them to an appointment, I would be more than happy. I can only talk about my experience and journey, which is going to be very different to other people's. But I think it's just anybody that is in that situation where somebody says to them, I've just found out, blah, just be supportive. Ask them if they need help with anything, And I have to admit, I haven't told many people at all about this little
Well, I promise this will only go around the world once, okay?
Now everybody knows.
They will.
And that's fine. I couldn't have thought of a better opportunity to have put it out there, I guess you could say. But yeah, my biggest thing is just for anybody just to be supportive. And I've learnt those that I have opened up to have been amazing and amazingly supportive. But I just think, if you had said to me now, we didn't know each other, say, and then you just came out and said that, it would just be listen,
Jules, one of the first things when I first started studying to be a coach, and it doesn't matter what type of coach you are, some of the core things have to be the same when you're sitting there talking to someone. They said the most important thing is to listen. And I've done sessions where the person's just sat there and talked, and I've just let them go. and they've been in a personal situation. And at the end of it, they've gone, oh, thank you so much, Rob. That was fantastic. You've been awesome. And all I did was sit there and listen.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said just summed up. It doesn't matter if it's cancer, if they're having a bad relationship, if their business has gone bad. I think a big key learning from what you've just, said is just listen to people. And sometimes that's all they just want to do is get it over. So in saying that, you and I have been around, we know this area very well where we live. We both live in the same beautiful area of Sydney. Yeah. If we were sitting up the golf club up there and looking down over Studley Park, which for anyone that doesn't know is the most amazing hilly golf club that looks west towards what we call in Australia the Blue Mountains. And you had the choice of 4 people to sit there at the dining room table with you, alive or dead, doesn't matter. Who would they be and why would you invite them?
I have thought of things like this before because I've been asked similar questions. I think Angelina Jolie would be one, definitely. I think I think she's been probably more of a female crush, actually. I'll be quite honest. I'm not going to lie. But I know she actually underwent preventative surgery when her mother was diagnosed and passed away from breast cancer.
Yep.
But I've just always liked her and had a love for her as an actor and just as a person. I think she has a little rebel sort of side to her as well, which I like.
A little like you, yes.
I love the singer Pink, always have. My haircut has been inspired by Pink for the last 6 years.
Yes.
I don't know, I relate to a lot of her songs, which it's probably not really good getting emotional when you're driving a car. But yeah, I've always enjoyed her. I think the personality too, that rebel sort of like, similar to Angelina. But Arnold Schwarzenegger would be another one that I just admire him, from he was 14 years of age when he pretty much got into bodybuilding and the journey that he's had from bodybuilding to acting and everything else he's done over time. He is a bit of an inspiration to me. And I also had Michelle Obama, I think the first lady, like looking back it would just be amazing to learn more about their lives because we only get to see when it's famous people that are in the limelight like that, you only see what we see. Yeah. You don't really know the insides of things. But yeah, I love learning about people. I love learning about everything like culture or whatever it might be. But yeah, I do have others on my list. I had Elvis just quickly and I had Oprah. But yeah, it's just wanting to learn more about them and their businesses and, obviously their curveballs that they've all been thrown in their time.
Do you see the travel industry coming back to what it was, or do you see like everything in life pivoting and being a little bit different?
I think life in general will be forever different from this experience for everyone just in life. Travel industry, I mean, you look at what's happening in Melbourne at the moment, the biggest concern is these reoccurrences happening and outbreaks again. Yeah. You can only be as safe as you are. And I know when I go out, like I go into particular shops and stores, people do not care. So I think, I don't know how things would ever get better when people are behaving and acting like they are. I heard a comment this morning of a man in a cafe I was in, and an old elderly man had a mask on. Another man walked in and said, "Why have you got that on? That's only for people interstate." So I think it's people's attitudes. But in terms of the travel industry, look, I think domestic is open. Obviously, there's certain borders closed. But like New South Wales, there are so many places that you can still go to. Yeah. Just got to really be mindful of your hygiene and all of that, and just, being cautious and protecting yourself and your family, your loved ones that you're with. But as for international, I would dare say, like next year, from what I've been listening and reading of all the information, the reality for international travel for us really won't be coming into effect until next year. But, I look at updates every day of America, like their numbers, and it's scary. Like it really is scary. But what also concerns me is on an aircraft, if somebody sneezes, like everyone's going to have masks. There's got to be so many restrictions in place. And, you know, are they going to be policed? To be honest, I wouldn't be getting on an international flight or an aeroplane at all right now. I will be going back in for another surgery in a couple of weeks. So that's where my sort of priority is, making sure every time I go to the hospital now, I'm there weekly, checked, sanitized, you know, that's very, very thorough. I think maybe it's a good thing. It's a bit of a shake up to the world because, I mean, who would have ever thought something like this would have happened?
Maybe it's the kick the world needed. Possibly. Well, Julie, what I can say is it has been an absolute pleasure listening to you today. I commend you on your bravery for coming out with your story. A lot of people couldn't do that. And I actually think you've really made a big difference to a lot of people who will hear this and may have those uncomfortable conversations they should have. You are an amazing lady. You have pivoted, you have adapted, you've shown just by pure grit and determination that, you know, you can do anything you want to do. And I know that what you've described to me offline about what your business will be, it's going to be more than just a business. It's actually going to put smiles on a lot of people's lives when they really, really need it. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I wish you all the best and catch up with you soon, eh?
Thanks, Rob. Denzel says goodbye as well.
Bye, Denzel. See ya.
See ya.